Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Raja Omar on my channel RU Speaks, and you people are watching me as Raja Omar speaks for you all for the subjects of Pakistan studies and global perspectives. And these days we are discussing the component one of the Pakistan studies, that is history and culture of Pakistan. And yesterday we talked about the decline of the Mughal Empire. What were the reasons behind the decline, and what were the impacts of that decline on the subcontinent? And we also discussed that how to attempt the 7 marks, 10 marks, and 14 marks questions related to that particular topic of decline of Mughals. Now, moving on to the next topic, that is the arrival of the British in the subcontinent and the policies they adopted, and what else they did regarding the role of East India Company in the affairs of the east of the subcontinent. What was the role of East India Company towards the taking over, and what had happened in the events related to the War of Independence and further. So this is how we'll move on slowly and gradually towards the later parts of or later events of the history of the subcontinent and history of Pakistan. But today we're going to talk about the British arrival in India and East India Company. So as you know, that subcontinent was a really rich land at that time during the Mughals and even before Mughals. So that was known as the Golden Sparrow, right? And the European nations became involved in the subcontinent due to the following reasons. So you may say that these are the reasons that why the European nations thought it that this was the best land for them to take over, and why they were supposed to be over there to even start their trade and businesses. India had certain raw materials that the rest of the world did not have, and the British desired these raw materials, including spices, cotton, sugar, silk, and jute, etc. So that was the first reason that why the Europeans started eyeing on the subcontinent regarding the availability of the raw material for their industry. Next one, the British had a great regard for the raw material since they had recently undergone the industrial revolution. Very important point it is that they had established the industry over there in Europe, but they did not have that raw material available for that industry to be processed over there. So they were looking for the raw material around the globe, and they thought it that this raw material is available for them in this particular land, what we call the subcontinent. That's why they landed over here. The Middle Eastern countries had a tax on Europeans, and the Byzantine Empire was now under the Ottomans, who sought cheaper trade routes. So it means that the Middle East was out of the reach of the British or the Europeans. So they got themselves away from the Middle Eastern countries, I mean the Arab countries, and they did not trade over there. They avoided land routes in the Middle East since trading via sea was cheaper, more effective, and gave economy to scale. So it means that that it was and it is all the time. It is said that the sea routes are cheaper than the roads and the railways. So as you know that the Indian subcontinent was at the verge of or the at the coast of the Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, and Bay of Bengal. So that was the best place for the Europeans to land over here and to connect with rest of the world through sea routes. But Middle Eastern countries, they were tough for them. That's why they did not go over there. Then British went to India since other lands, for example, Africa, were already under Portuguese control. They also fought against the French there, but they failed and could not got the control over there. So that's why they turned towards the subcontinent. And they got the lessons from Queen Victoria in the year 1600 for East India. I mean for far eastern countries, that is Indonesia and Malaysia. But when they reached over there, they saw that the Frenchmen were already there. They had established their colonies and they had established their businesses and trades over there. And on their return, they landed at Calicut at the seaport of the subcontinent. So British took control over EIC. I mean, the British government took control over the affairs of the EIC. That is known as that event is of 1784. That is known as Pitt's India Act, when the affairs of the East India Company were directly came under the control of the British government. I mean, the head of the EIC was appointed by the British government. So the British took control over EIC because the volume of trade and profit to the British was extremely significant. The Crown did not feel that that thing of such importance should remain in the hands of a private company. They thus took control of the EIC. You know that EIC was earning a lot from the subcontinent, and the British government was unaware that how much profits the EIC was making over here in India. So when they came to know that EIC was almost looting the lands of the subcontinent, the British government took control over EIC affairs. So that whatever the profit and whatever the collection, tax collections, everything should go to the British government. The British needed to shape their foreign policy. Since the Russians seemed to be trying to expand, they could not be done under EIC. So as the British government perceived that the Russians might be expanding and moving down this way to take over the subcontinent before their takeover, why not to be over there and to take over the charge of EIC and got the better control over the subcontinent. So this was the reason. Another one. So British prestige was at stake. They needed expansion to regain the image they had lost in their disgraceful loss at Kabul by the Afghans. First, the British, they attacked Afghanistan, but they badly failed over there. Just to restore their prestige and their global fame, they they moved towards the subcontinent and they took over the affairs of the East India Company to show that the subcontinent was somehow under the control of the British government, but not officially. So British taking control over India, successes. Successes of what? Successes of, first we're going to talk about the British taking control over India, successes of Indians in resistance against the British. I mean, how successful were the locals, I mean the Indians, to resist against the British to stop them to take control. So that is, these successes are not of the British, but are of the Indians. So in 1666, EIC grew proud, refused taxes, and issued coins. Aurangzeb sent a force against them, defeated them. EIC paid a fine, apologized, reduced activities, trade activities in the subcontinent. So that was the first success of the Indians to restrict EIC. When? In 1666, during the reign of Aurangzeb. Second, Tipu Sultan had French support and used his strong army against the EIC at several times, defeating them. So it means that Tipu Sultan showed the resistance of the British expansionism in the subcontinent. And then 1756, Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowla, defeated EIC and managed to drive them away from, and they captured Calcutta. But the next year, 1756, the Nawab was defeated by the British. So it means that, so these are the three successes of the locals, that they restricted the British to take control over India. But here are the failures of the Indians. Failures of Indians in resistance against the British. The very next year in 1757, the British under Robert Clive defeated Siraj-ud-Dowla forces with the help of Mir Jafar's betrayal. Siraj died and Mir Jafar was placed as the puppet ruler by the British in Bengal. So it means that Bengal came under the control of the British. In the Battle of Buxar, 1764, the British defeated Mir Jafar's son Mir Qasim and Shah Alam II and Nawab of Oudh. I mean, they collectively fought against the British. I mean, the forces of Mir Qasim, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, and Nawab of Oudh, the collective forces of these three were defeated by single force, the British, in the Battle of Buxar in 1764. This extended their influence, gave them Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. They collected revenue from here, managed to get a bigger army, ended pro-Muslim rule in that region. So again, that was the failure of the locals, that they were defeated by the British, whether it was Mir Qasim of the Mir Jafar's son in Bengal, or the forces of the Mughal Empire Shah Alam II, or the forces of Nawab of Oudh. In 1782, the first Governor General Warren Hastings signed a treaty with the Marathas. They could now focus on other places, and Marathas takeover was prevented. So it means that in this way, they got the control of the central India by signing a treaty, not war this time. So it means that the British, they took multiple sort of strategies to take control over India. At some places, they fought battles. At some places, they signed treaties just to got their stronger control. In 1799, Governor General Wesley invaded Mysore and killed Tipu Sultan. They thus killed a strong enemy and took control of his lands in Mysore towards the southern India. In 1803, the British entered Delhi, forced Shah Alam II to accept rule under British protection, which basically meant that the emperor no longer had any real power. British were true rulers by this point. So it means that this one was war, this one was treaty, and up over there were wars. Over here again, the entrance of the British in at the capital Delhi. So again, you can say a sort of surrender by the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II in 1803. So they provoked the Sindh Amirs into war despite a treaty signed between the two parties in an attempt to make up for their disgrace in Afghanistan. The defeat in Afghanistan was washed over there by an annexation of Sindh in 1843. British managed this part this partly because of the Industrial Revolution, which made them technologically superior, giving them an edge over the Indians with their weapons and techniques, and you can say the well-disciplined army that they were able to defeat the locals, and the locals could not show that much of resistance to keep the British away from the straight affairs. But finally, they could not manage to get rid of the British, and the control got stronger even with each day passing. So misery due to the British rule, Indians were very wealthy, but this wealth was heavily exploited by the British, with all this wealth going over to the British and Britain and to Europe for that industry. In 1829, they banned sati, a common Hindu tradition, replaced Persian with the English as the government language. So it means that the local language, the Persian language, was replaced with English. So these all were the miseries. Number one, that they looted the wealth of the subcontinent. They banned the Hindu traditions and practices, and they imposed their own language. Indians could no longer get government jobs, so another misery for them. Indians had to send their children to co-education schools with westernized education. They disliked it as it went against their culture and religion over in the subcontinent, if we talk about the Muslims. So it means that all the things were getting against the will and wish of the people of the subcontinent, and the things were not under control. Christian missionaries came and set up schools and seemed to try to convert the local populace to Christianity. This was a sort of resentment of the Indians that they were forcefully converted to Christians by the British. British brought in the railway system, which is also annoyed the Indians as they felt that the British were trying to intervene in India too much. So British sold cotton in India thanks to Industrial Revolution and collapsed the Indian textile industry, the local industry of the subcontinent, leaving millions jobless and poor as they were bringing that cotton cloth from Britain, which was processed over there in the industry established by the British over there in Europe. So the tactics adopted by the British uh, to take over. So that was the divide and rule policy number one. Direct wars, as I have explained in the upper topics, that they invaded certain areas. They fought wars against Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, Nawab Sirajuddaulah, Mir Qasim, Shah Alam II, and the Nawab of Oudh. So they were the notable people were Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, and Nawab Sirajuddaulah of Bengal, and also Nawab Sirajuddaulah and Mir Qasim of Bengal. They all were defeated by the British. So direct wars led to the British expansionism. British expanded themselves over in the subcontinent. Second, that is the subsidiary alliances. They were the alliances, I mean, a sort of treaties with local princes. According to the terms, the real matter of the land were given to the in the hands of the British in terms of British protection and money. Furthermore, the ruler could stay on throne, though only as a British puppet. In this, British were able to reinforce its control over India. So it means that they signed treaties with the local Nawabs and local Amirs and local princes, and allowing them that they could remain on the throne, but the whole of the affairs and the protection and the security of that state would be under the control of the British. So, doctrine of lapse. So, the British introduced this doctrine of lapse in 1852. This law stating that all rulers under the terms of subsidiary alliances, if do not have any natural male heir, then after their death, the lands would belong to the British. For example, if a Nawab dies and he had no legal male heir, his lands would be taken over by the British. One of the affected was Rani of Jhansi, who later played an important role in the War of Independence of 1857. She had the legal heir, and in the same way, the Nawab of Oudh had the legal heir, but British forcefully took over the lands of Nawab of Oudh and Rani of Jhansi on the application of this doctrine of lapse. So, Battle of Plassey, the French encouraged the Nawab of Bengal to attack the EIC base at Calcutta. Furthermore, the fortification of British post on Calcutta was also against agreement with the Nawab of Bengal, and so Sirajuddaulah marched over Calcutta and seized Fort Williams and locked the British residents in a small room. 23 out of 65 people died. This is known as the Black Hole Incident, and this can be a 4 marks question, that what was the black hole incident. There were smaller holes over there in that room from where the people were you can say inhaling the oxygen coming in, but it was a smaller room and majority of the people, there were 65 over there inside. Out of them, 23 died just because of the suffocation. And so the Battle of Plassey began. Robert Clive succeeded in defeating Sirajuddaulah by bribing one of his key men, Mir Jafar. Jafar was made the new Nawab of Bengal, and Bengal came under the EIC rule. So this is how they took over the biggest and richest province of the subcontinent, that is Bengal. Assault on Afghanistan. The British were threatened about Russia seeking to expand its territory towards Afghanistan in the south in 1939. Sorry, it is 1839. In 1839, British invaded Afghanistan and installed its own puppet ruler. However, the British army could not face the difficult terrain of Afghanistan as well as the locals, and soon, within 2 years, the Afghans rebelled and massacred the British force. Out of 4,000 soldiers, only one was left from Kabul, survived and reported the incident in Delhi. So it means that the British faced a greater defeat over there in Afghanistan within the period of 2 years. They could not sustain their rule over there. The annexation of Sindh, just to hide their disgrace over there in Afghanistan when they were defeated over there in 1843, the British pride was hurt by the invasion in Afghanistan and decided to attack on Sindh under Sir Charles Napier to restore their pride among Muslims and to capture the important route through Bolan Pass. Even in Britain, many people condemned Napier's action for they had broken a friendship treaty with the Amirs of Sindh. So annexation of Punjab, the British now turned to Punjab, threatened by the increasing power of Ranjit Singh, the Sikh government over in Punjab. They planned now to capture the trade route over Indus River and Khyber Pass. The Sikhs were worried also, and so they attacked on British-controlled India in 1845, First Sikh War. So their main army was destroyed. Finally, in 1848-49, Second Sikh War, the Sikh army was destroyed, and so the British took over Punjab. The NWFP, I mean the current Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, also came under the British rule with the capture of Punjab, as the Sikh government was of Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well. So these were the topics which were related to the East India Company and the arrival of the British, how they were able to take control. Now, here I have designed few questions related to this topic today, that how the British were able to take control over India, explain why the East India Company became involved in the Indian subcontinent during the 17th century. So number one, the East India Company became involved in the subcontinent during the 17th century primarily to extend its trade. That is the point. India was rich in valuable resources like spices, cotton, silk, and indigo, which were in high demand in Europe. The company wanted to establish direct trade links to increase profits by cutting out middlemen such as the Portuguese and Dutch traders. Establishing trading posts along the Indian coast allowed them to secure a steady supply of goods at low cost. So it means that for the sake of developing their trade activities, they were involved in the activities of the subcontinent. Another reason was the political and economic weakness of the Mughal Empire by the late 17th century. Although the empire was still powerful, local rulers and regional governors, Nawabs, were starting to act independently. This allowed the company to negotiate directly with those local leaders and to get the advantage of their trade and even the military support. The fragmentation of power in India made it easier for the company to slowly increase its influence and secure commercial concessions. So it means that they got the concessions from the Mughal emperor to pay really very less taxes to the British government, to the Mughal emperors. So it means that they whatever they were earning, that was going all in profits. Finally, the East India Company sought to protect its commercial interests by gradually building a military presence. So competition from other European powers and occasional local resistance led the company to establish forts and recruit Indian soldiers, the Sipais. This military backing enabled it to shift from a purely trading enterprise to a political power in the subcontinent. In conclusion, trade ambitions, weakening local authority, and the need for security all contributed to the company's involvement in the Indian subcontinent. So you can see that three really very well explained reasons are here. So level 3, fifth mark, level 3, sixth mark, and level 3, seventh mark is over here. to attempt this 7 marks question. So this is almost the same question. That is, why did the British government take control of the affairs of the East India Company? Just explained above over there in the notes. So mismanagement and corruption are concerns of the East India Company regarding paying taxes, and you can say that mistreating the affairs of India. So the British government directly involved in this one, and finally they took over in the form of the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So, second reason, that another reason was the company's failure to maintain political stability in the subcontinent, as there were many rebellions and there were many a greater chaos in the subcontinent. So, East India Company was unable to keep the things calm. So, in this way, you can say that the British government believed that the direct control was necessary, as it was not it was reaching out of the hands of the East India Company to control the affairs of the subcontinent. So, economic reason played a major role. The British government wanted to ensure that the India's wealth was used to benefit Britain, not just the company shareholders. So it means that what the British government wanted, whatever the trade activity was being carried out over here in the subcontinent, that should not be for the company, but it should be benefiting whole of the Britain. So that's why it was must that the company should be taken over by the British government. So that's what we have studied, that the first Governor General took over just after the passing of the Pitt's India Act of 1784, that the company went under the control of the British government. So this is how the 7 marks questions are attempted, as I explained the marking scheme of this one. And I will share the file, this particular PDF file over there from my Google Drive in the link of in the description of this video. You will be able to find this file as well, and I will give the open access to this file. You can easily download these notes from over there to prepare yourself for your exams regarding the history questions related to the arrival of the British and the East India Company. In the same way, this is another 7 marks question. Same 3 reasons are explained over here, and the reasons are explained up over there in the notes. And here we have another one. Why was British successful in increasing its control of some parts of the subcontinent in the year 1750 to 1850? So again, there came the defeat of Tipu Sultan. There came the decline of the Mughal Empire, the weak central control of the Mughals, and again the British, they were really very much successful, as they had really very strong administrative and economic strategies, and even the military strategies as well. So that's why they were able to take control. Here we have a 14 marks question. So again, as I explained the marking scheme, that you are supposed to write level 3, 3 reasons to explain. So level 3, 7th mark is over here. Level 3, 8th mark is over here. And level 3, 9th mark is over here. And you have reached to the maximum of level 3. So however, whenever this particular word is used, it means that we are switching from level 3 to level 4. So this reason is of level 4. The other side, so 10th mark, this one is level 4, 11th mark, and here we have the level 4, 12th mark, and here we have reached the maximum of the level 4, and here we have given the evaluation and judgment. And in this one, this is the 2 marks judgment. So it means that level 5, 13 and 14, 2 marks are allocated for this one. If you will write really very well developed conclusion or evaluation or judgment, then you will be given these 2 marks. Otherwise, you may be getting 1. So it means in this case, you will be getting 13 out of 14 marks if you are not developing your conclusion. So this is how you are supposed to attempt. So I have mentioned about 4 or 5 questions over here. Another 10 marks question, I mean the compulsory question 1D over here, very much the same. Just the marks are different. So here, level 3, 4th mark, level 3, 5th mark, level 3, 6th mark. So here we are come to the end of level 3, and again however is mentioned over here. So level 4 starts, level 4 7, level 4 8th mark, level 4 ninth mark, and in the end we will find the conclusion that will be, and here it is a bit lengthy, so you can write a single sentence up to this point, that can be really very important, or one more sentence over here to gain the 10th mark. So level 5 10 marks, so it means this is the compulsory question 1D of 10 marks, so you can do it like that. So few questions are here. Again, another 14 marks question with the same marking style, same reasons are explained what I have already explained in the upper lines in my notes. So I will share the link of this file as well along with my notes over there and my lecture over there on my YouTube channel RU Speaks. So this is all about from my side, and we have done with the arrival of the British and the role of his East India Company in the affairs of the subcontinent. Do not forget to subscribe, like, watch, comment, and share my channel RU Speaks. Inshallah, in the next lesson, we will move forward towards the religious thinkers, that is the role of Shah Waliullah, Sayyid Ahmad Shahid Barelvi, Haji Shariatullah, and the Tumir in the revival of Islam in the subcontinent. So, up till now, this is all over from my side. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.